Hello, how are ya? I'm good. I have never been a person that likes to be around insects, snakes, arachnids, lizards, that kind of thing. I've never been afraid of them, but I've never gone out of my way to interact with them. And until finally a few years ago, I saw a picture online of the Poecilotheria metallica, which the common name is the Goody sapphire ornamental tarantula. I saw that picture and holy crap, was I stunned. I could not believe how beautiful it was, because in my dealings with arachnids and insects and such, most of the spiders I've ever seen have been dull, ugly brown. Had the misconception that they just, if you get anywhere near them, they want to bite you, and that there was nothing about them that was redeeming at all. And I saw that Goody sapphire and was absolutely amazed at the vibrancy of the colors. And that's when I started looking into tarantulas a little bit more. I started, researching how they were kept as pets, the information, where they're from, what their temperaments are, how they live. Just, I started learning. And last January of 2021, I went from thinking about owning a tarantula to actually purchasing one. And it seemed to my friends to be very quick that I made a snap decision, because I didn't talk about it at all. But I actually thought about it for about 2 years before I actually purchased one. And the first one I purchased was a Goody sapphire. It was a juvenile. It was very, very small. Didn't know if it was a boy or girl, but I named him Baylor, and I called him a him. But I was clueless. I did not have a clue what the hell I was doing. And I certainly didn't have a clue how to keep a spiderling or juvenile and keep it alive. So he ended up dying after about 5 weeks with me. And it was all my fault. 100% my fault he died, because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. So I ended up getting online and buying 3 more after that. And I made sure that they were the larger tarantulas, not half-inch big, but I'm talking, 2 inches plus. So they weren't spiderlings. They may have still been juveniles, but you know, either way, they were bigger and would would be, in my opinion, easier to keep while I'm learning. And I got Dana Fe, my pink toe. I got Breeza, my striped knee, and Trill, my curly hair. And I got them, I think it was around the first week of March of last year. So I've had them for a year and a half, and they're still doing great. And since then, I have continued to purchase more and more and more. um, I own 50 right now, and I have had 12 die on me. So, it's never good when I have one die, but it is the nature of things. I mean, sometimes it just doesn't work out right. And I've continued to learn with each one I've purchased. And there are two types. They're either arboreal or terrestrial. Arboreal, they live up in trees and make their webbing and their homes up off the ground. And terrestrial means they stay on the ground. And a lot of terrestrials will be fossorial, which is they burrow in the ground and ambush their prey when it comes around, and they detect it. So when I purchase these tarantulas, whichever type, I of course buy the appropriate enclosure, because that's just the way they thrive. You don't want a fossorial with a very high enclosure, because that's wasted area and it can stress them out. And same thing with an arboreal. If you don't give them room to climb and be up off the ground, then they'll be stressed. So when I get them, I put them in the appropriate enclosure. But I have actually had to switch some of them. I have had some of my arboreals that have stayed on the ground, made their webbing either on top of the ground or made a slight burrow and then webbed over that. And, they would eat, but they wouldn't eat regularly. So when when you observe their behaviors, and when I noticed that they weren't thriving as much as they should, then I changed their enclosure. Now, I've also gone from big enclosures to smaller ones with some of mine. Two of them right offhand is my pink toe Dana Fe. I had her in one of my big enclosures, and she never put up any webbing, and I never saw her doing a whole lot, and she did not eat for like I don't know, 3-4 months at least at a time. So what I did is I got a smaller arboreal enclosure and I put her in that. And ever since then, man, she has been so much happier. She will actually take the crickets when I offer them, and if she doesn't take them immediately, she does end up getting them over the next day or so. And she's produced webbing and made a little area for her up at the very top of the enclosure, and she just seems to be thriving a lot better. And I did the same with my ornamental baboon, my H. maculata. He was in a large arboreal, but he never left the ground. So I put him into a smaller arboreal, and he's actually roaming all over it, and been a lot more active than he used to be. So you really have to watch them and pay attention to what they're doing and how they're acting in their enclosures, so you can give them a better chance at a happier life. Not happier, but a more of a thriving life. So the fact that I have some arboreals in terrestrial enclosures and vice versa, or they've been in large enclosures and not been thriving as well, so I put them in smaller ones for them to do better, and they have. It all depends on the tarantula, really. I had posted a video about one of mine that was in a small enclosure, but the tarantula was, a decent size that should probably be in a larger enclosure, which I originally had them in, but they weren't thriving. And I had somebody comment on it that, hey, maybe they ought to be in a bigger enclosure. And I'm like, no, they were, and they weren't happy. So you will never know everything there is to know about these guys. They each have their own personality. They have their own habits. And yes, I consider them my pets. But the main thing about having a pet is you want them to have a healthy, thriving lifestyle. And, I've owned cats for a long time, and that's exactly what I've done with cats. And now I've just applied that to my tarantulas. And they all seem to be doing good. I live in a 4-bedroom house. The master bedroom's mine, and I have all of my tarantulas in my bedroom because I absolutely love sitting here watching them and having them to where I can just get up out of bed and go and open an enclosure and interact with that tarantula. Because I do. I interact with 49 out of 50 of my tarantulas. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. It's absolutely wonderful to be able to watch them in the evening before I go to bed. and interact with them. So if you're ever thinking about getting into keeping a tarantula, do research first, because trial and error will usually end up in a lot of errors, as I am fully aware. But definitely do the research. Learn what their needs are before you get them, whether they need high humidity or lower humidity, whether they prefer a dry soil or a moister soil, arboreal, terrestrial, fossorial. Learn these things. You can find all that information online. There are thousands of places you can get the information from. And don't just take information from one site, because not every site is accurate. There is wrong information out there. But if you go to 10 sites and 9 of them say a certain thing, then you can probably bet that that's close to the truth. But I'll tell you right now, they are not a short-term pet. Some of my species can live 20 to 30 years. Most tarantulas, especially males, will live normally between 5 to 8 years at the best. But females can live anywhere from 12 to 30 years. And I've even heard a report of a tarantula living to be almost 40. So it's not something to consider and take lightly, because they're going to be around for a long time, longer than a cat or dog possibly. But I can honestly say it's absolutely worth it. I would not change a thing. It is absolutely, it has absolutely made my life better to have all my tarantulas. So I'm gonna sign off for now. I thank you for watching, and I hope this has given you a little bit of information, and that hopefully you'll find it helpful. So I'm signing off. Lots of love to y'all. Bye.